So you're here because Google Ads stopped working for your e-commerce brand. Don't worry though, you're not alone. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how to approach your low Google Ads results and how to get it scaling again the right way. Because in a situation like this, most brand owners, what they do is they panic. And instead of going with the right mindset, with the right approach, what they do is they try to do a bunch of different things all at the same time. They try to revert back the changes, then they try to add 2 more changes, then they try to listen to this random guy on YouTube and do something else. And all that does is it takes it away from a single point of contact between the old results versus the new result. And now it adds all of these 5, 10, 15 different pathways, which now you have to figure out what went wrong to begin with. So the worst thing you can do right now is panic and go crazy with all of those changes. But on the other side of the spectrum, there's also brand owners who, in the hopes of fixing their Google Ads results, in the hopes of getting it back on track, what they do is either of the two situations. Number one, they might just let it run without touching it for the next 7, 14, 21 days, turning Google into set it and forget it approach. And this is their way of basically getting things back on track. Just don't touch it and let it work. This can work, don't get me wrong, but this is what I call the lazy man's approach of getting Google right back on track. The second most common way most brands actually approach this situation is they throw more money at Google. Instead of now taking a step back, actually reducing the spend, actually reducing the inefficiencies, they create more inefficiencies by spending more money, by rewarding the algorithm, even though things are not going as planned. Both are the wrong things to do in a situation like this, because what most brand owners don't realize is your results going from basically working to now going down every single month. Like for example, in the situation of this brand, it doesn't just come out all of a sudden or overnight. Usually it's a slow process, a slow accumulation of previous kind of touch points where results were bad for 1 or 2 days, then they became bad for maybe a week or two. Then it just started to happen more and more and more often. That's usually, from my experience, what I've seen happen with Google Ads. They don't just flop off and just go down overnight. It builds up over time to the breaking point where then all of a sudden things just go into the negative. But regardless of what causes it, here are some of the most commonly caused problems with Google Ads. These are some of the most common reasons why your results are probably going down right now. Number one, a new competitor has now entered the market and is now stealing a lot of the impression share away from your brand. As a result, your CPCs are going up, your cost per acquisition is going up, and your overall profitability is now starting to drop day by day. Number two most common issue is your strategy has just become too stale. This is especially for the lazy man's approach, where the brand owners, instead of having an active influence over their Google Ads results, they just kind of approach it with a set it and forget it mentality, where the campaigns don't get optimized on a regular basis, the product feed hasn't been optimized, even the landing pages haven't been optimized in a long time, and this just becomes stale to the point where your audience has become immune to it, so they no longer really find it interesting. Or number two, it's gone out of fashion. In this situation like this, and also a lack of A/B testing, this can cause your brand to become a lot more inefficient with Google and the results to kind of start going negative. Third most common reason is a change you recently made, which may have caused it. This is one of the easiest situations to fix. But the fourth major issue is search volume fluctuations. A little bit more difficult to directly target because you don't control how many people actually search up your product in a given month, but there are ways to go around this. But these are, generally speaking, 99% of the times the reasons why your brand is struggling to scale. Before we even continue, you need to take a step back, maybe pause this video and understand which one of these 4 reasons or which one of the 4 situations your brand actually falls into. And we're going to go into the depths of how to even figure out which one of these 4 reasons impacts your brand in general. The main question you want to approach this situation with is not in a state of panic. It's not in a state of just doing random changes all at once. Rather, it's asking yourself 2 core questions. Number one, what changes were made in the last X amount of days when this problem actually started, when the results actually started to drop? You might find out that 7 days ago is when the results started to drop, and 7 days ago or 8 days ago, you made a big change with the account which caused this. Or you might find out that 30 days ago is when the results started to drop, but when you check, there was no other changes made 30 days ago or prior to that which could have caused this issue, which means the issue is a bit deeper. Second question you want to ask yourself is, what is the quickest lever we can pull to get things back on track? Because yes, there are multiple ways you can use or implement to get back on track. We're not interested in that. All we're interested in is what is the fastest and the easiest and the quickest way to get back on track. That will guide us to actually making the right edits and the right optimizations to get things working in the right order. But now, the 5-step process which we always take to fix our Google Ads approach, to fix our Google Ads strategy, starting with step number 1, which is the foundational audit. Look, if the new competitor entered the market or if your strategy has become stale, the only way you're gonna know about this is if you go deep into your foundations, the product feed, the Google Merchant Center, to identify any new issues that are popping up, even the conversion tracking or new competitors entering the market, to understand what the situation is for the brand. So in a situation like this, what we would do is we would essentially devour the insight section or the search term section to figure out, number 1, are there any new competitors coming in within the last 7 days or within the last 28 days that could have been stealing away our impression share? The easiest way to look at this is to look at the data within the insight section, for example, which tells us this information right here. So for instance, right now we're ranking number 5, we're only getting 14% of the impression share, which we are increasing in impression share in the last 28 days, but there are brands above us, like this brand right here, for example, at 36% impression share. So 2 times more impression share. We saw a little bit of a dip here for that brand, and a red brand right here, which in this situation is Target, started to eat up more impression share. But during this time, our impression share was pretty consistent, but it did drop significantly as well. So this tells us that maybe a brand like Target or some other brands are kind of playing around with their strategies, with their approaches, and improving bids, decreasing bids, etc. But this should let you know if there's any new competition entering the market as well. We're also trying to understand what are the keywords we're now ranking more for and what's kind of eating up more of our budgets versus what isn't working anymore. So for example, we can see we're trying to rank for bigger and better keywords right now that have some decent amount of search volume, but at the same time, we're getting more conversions for them. And we want to look at for patterns essentially. We're trying to see what this pattern looks like, if it's improving across the board, if it's not improving, etc. Because that is part of the foundation to understand if there's any sorts of keyword issues here, or if there's new competitor issues, or if it's on a deeper level. The next thing we want to look at in step 1 is the product feed. Because a lot of the times what I've noticed is brands don't even know their product feed has gone down, or maybe a lot of the new products have now become ineligible because new suspensions came into the accounts, or maybe disapprovals came into the account, which started to kind of make the cost go to bare minimum, or something else was happening in the merchant center. This is one of the most common problems I see with the brands we work with, which, by the way, if you run a brand making $50,000 per month or more in revenue, you need some extra help scaling your brand profitably and consistently to the next level. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description below for a completely free Google Ads audit, where I'll find all the problems, potential solutions, and how you can achieve scale with Google Ads for your brand on a call. But that's what I'm looking for next. I'm trying to understand if there's any policy violations, anything that's disapproved all of a sudden, if there's any sorts of wrong matching of the products. For example, there's a lot of disapprovals now which weren't here before for this brand, which this might be one of the reasons why the results have gone down, because now that means the quality score of the accounts has taken a negative kind of dip downwards. But in step 1, we're trying to identify and just point down all of the potential causes that could have caused the results to become unsatisfactory, because that's going to bring us to step number 2, which is the structural audit. In this situation, now we go from the foundations to more of the structure of the Google Ads accounts and how it is laid out in general in terms of the campaign structure. And here is where I'm trying to understand if there's any issues with the campaigns on a broad level. Like, for example, this campaign has some policy violation issues, which are always going to be there because this brand is in the alcohol industry. But I'm also trying to understand on a deeper level, where are we spending more of our money right now at this point? And the best way to do that is go over to the report section, especially if you run Performance Max campaigns mostly, and to the Performance Max campaign placement section, because this lets us know where majority of our money is getting spent. And ideally, we want most of our money, if not all of it, to be spent on something called Google owned and operated placements. In this situation, if we see that a lot of our ad budget is going towards everything else that's not Google owned and operated, that's going to be a big issue. But what we're trying to do in this overall situation is we're trying to figure out if our campaign campaign approach has started to become stale. And the easiest way to kind of understand this is to look at the campaigns on a deeper level to see what the numbers overall look like for the brand and compare it to the previous period. So for example, if we see that across the board, all of the metrics are going down, then that's a good indicator that that campaign itself has become a bit stale. But you might see in some situations where some of the metrics are actually going up, but then some of the metrics, like for example, CTRs or the ROAS, for example, they're going down. That's not a direct indicator that the campaign strategy has become stale. It's more of the fact that maybe your product feed needs optimizations because the CTR is dropping as well as the ROAS. So that means we're attracting lower and lower quality of the audience. But step 2 is the structural audit, the campaign strategies, the reporting, to figure out where our money is actually getting spent, because that then brings us to step number 3, which is the nitty-gritty details approach. This is the approach where we're trying to figure out, did we make a change recently that could have messed everything up? And this easiest way to do this is look at the change history to figure out if there was a recent change made by one of the team members, or if we made something. For example, it could be a certain change we made with the budget that now caused problems with that campaign, which just means that we might need to give it a few more days to optimize. But let's say after 3, 4, 5, 7 days of running the campaign, it still doesn't optimize. That lets us know that potentially there's a deeper issue and that campaign is not designed to operate at that level of budget, at that level of scale. That means we need to go back and work on the foundations. But the nitty-gritty details, step 3, is where you should know it made the drop happen or if it's something else. And by this point, we should already know the core reason of why the drop is happening. Is it new competitors entering the market? Is it your strategy has become stale? Or is it a change that you made? Or is it simply search volume fluctuations? Because with search volume fluctuations, of course, within the actual keyword section, the search term section, it's very difficult to directly figure out how the search trends are and whether the brand is actually scaling in that manner or not. But the easiest way to do this is to go over to the keyword planner tool, use one of your major keywords, or you can use your website as a whole to then understand how the search volume and the search trend looks. So for example, if we go on Google keyword planner tool, type in the keyword 3D printer, we might know that if, for example, May, June is when we're at right now and we see the sales dropping, chances are high it's just the search volume trend, because the overall search volume trend even last year dropped during that time, and you want to look at the last 24 months of data just to confirm as well if that's the same situation. So June, July, August usually seems slower for this industry, which means that it could be a search volume issue. But from your findings, step 4 is about quick wins. Again, in the start I said we don't want to implement all of these tactics, all of these things all at once. We want to do just those specific things which can lead us to the quickest wins, to the quickest changes we can make right now. And again, by this time you should know already what's working and what stopped working. And if you don't, I highly recommend you go back and watch the video from step 1 and step 3 again. But in this situation, we're trying to basically, number 1, approach it in the easiest manner, undo the last change. So for example, in this situation, if we notice that one of the campaigns that started underperforming, the main reason why is because somebody came in and increased the budget and the performance dropped, then in that situation, the easiest step is to go back in budget to what it was working at previously, or maybe go back a slightly lower budget, but not as low as what it was originally if your goal is to scale. Second kind of thing you can do is a quick setting change. So for example, if this campaign just stopped working because the CTR dropped and because the ROAS also dropped, well, now in this situation, we want to increase the quality of the audience we're targeting. So potentially what that means is going in, making a quick setting change, and maybe the 301% ROAS target is too low. Maybe we can make it 310% or maybe 305%. Just making a quick small change, enough to see some traction, some better momentum almost immediately. And this will let us know how the ad account performs, and then we can troubleshoot the other parts of the funnel based on what happens here. Or the third easiest way to go about it is to make a quick exclusion or just turning off a campaign that isn't performing in a long period of time. So for example, if we notice in the last 30 days the results dropped, we go over to search terms and we see that an unnecessary keyword all of a sudden started eating up more budget and it's not the most profitable, let's assume. Well, in that situation, we would just go in and completely exclude that as a negative keyword, and it's a quick change, but that would immediately rewire the algorithm, reframe it to go after a different pocket of the audience completely, which is enough in most situations to get the account back on track. But let's say You do all these 4 steps, you do all the quick changes, you implement the quick changes one at a time, every 3 days, every 5 days, every 7 days. But after a 2-week period, the account is still not back to the level it was at before. In this situation, step 5, the last resort, is a complete revamp. This is the worst case scenario where now we have to restructure the campaigns of the ad accounts. And in most situations, when we're restructuring for the brands we work with, we almost always go with a much simpler approach than what is already implemented. So for example, in this situation, we see 7 different campaigns running, a lot of them with policy violations and whatnot. In a situation like this, we would probably shut off the other campaigns which are not performing at all with extremely low ROI, and we would allocate more of our budget towards what's already working, because we don't want to test new things during a time like this. We want to get back on track. And the only way to do that is to historically work with what's already proven to work, push more budget to that approach momentarily, and just consolidate the approach overall, get more different product variations, for example, more keywords, all segregated inside 1 or 2 separate campaign approaches versus 5 or 10. Consolidation is key during slow period, and pushing more budget towards a select fewer number of campaigns, because this approach, what it does is instead of one campaign now getting budget at $200 a day, then another one getting some money and data at $30 a day, we now 10x the speed of the momentum, 10x the speed of the data coming in. And instead of this campaign now getting $30 a day worth of data on a given daily basis, we now push it up to $300 a day. So 10 times more momentum in a single day than what it was originally getting, which makes it go after the right audience at a much faster rate, which is our ultimate goal. But small tweaks and techniques like that is what transitions the brand towards the right direction. And again, this is a process. It's not something in step number 5 at least, where you can just come in, make a quick change, and then things get back on track. It might take a little bit of a longer time just to get things back on track, but that's the situation the brand is in at this moment. And that's the only worst case scenario that we have to kind of approach the brand with. But with that being said, fixing your Google Ads accounts boils down to making the fewest and simplest changes possible. Because the problem is, in a situation like this, most brands panic and go ham. They're making a lot of changes, and then at the end, they don't even know where they even started to begin with. So as long as you can prevent yourself from doing that, as long as you can hold back from making too many changes all at once and approaching it one at a time, your brand should get back on track fairly quickly and scale again fairly quickly. But again, if it doesn't, if you need some extra help scaling profitably with Google Ads and you already do $50,000 a month or more in revenue, scan the QR code or click the link in the description below and directly schedule a call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together to make scale actually happen.